Hi, I'm Richard Friedman, and welcome to my video cartoon for February 16th, 2026. Here today we have, oh, by the way, I hope you're having a good President's Day. I remember when I lived in the Bronx, they celebrated Washington's birthday separately from Lincoln's birthday. So at Alexander's department store, you got to enjoy, you had two sales, one for Abraham Lincoln and one for George Washington. That was before it became President's Day, way back in the 60s. Just thinking about those days. Now, here is my latest cartoon here, and this shows basically the drones here that this was done by the Department of War, the Chief Technology Officer under our Secretary let's call it Secretary of War, because that's what he refers it to. So we'll call it the Secretary of War. Still has to be confirmed by the Congress. Hasn't been, but we'll go with Pete here and call it we'll call it the Department of War. Okay? And that's okay. And here that was. And before we get to that, I'm going to read you the introduction. There it was. Now, I just want to say one thing here that's very interesting. That you see these were drones. This is something they mistakenly shot down, thinking that the balloons that were flying over El Paso weren't balloons. They thought they were drones from the Mexican cartel drones that were invading the United States, and it turns out they were party balloons. You see, so this is what happened here. Is that we'll get to that. I want to read you the introduction first, and then we'll get into the cartoon. So here goes the introduction, and that's Richard Trump responding to a reporter's question on whether he was pleased. Now here we're going to go with President Trump in a little while, and we'll get to President Trump too. Here we have him here in front of the White House. Here, here's President Trump, and he's taking a response. But we'll get to that. First, I want to read you again, go back to the introduction. Richard Trump responded to a reporter's question on whether he was pleased with the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, after his post that suggested the U.S. military had shot down a Mexican drug cartel drone headed for the U.S., given it was later identified as a party balloon near El Paso, Texas. So my point here is, how do you mistake one of these party balloons here? You see here, going up in the air, party balloon. How do you mistake a party balloon here flying for basically this? And this is what they put up. Pete Hegseth, his department, his technology department, the CTO, and it says here CTO here, you see? That means Chief Technology Officer, defend the homeland with the American flag. And that was after they had shot it down. I suppose it was immediately after it. They jumped the gun thinking that they had actually shot down these Mexican cartel drones heading to the U.S. And it turned out to be bullets. How do you mistake these drones here? And he put this up here. There it was here, and there's the eagle, and here comes the laser going out like this here, and hitting one of the drones, exploding. One of the drones is exploding here, and this is what I got. I colorized it a little bit. It wasn't so colorized in the picture. It was very gray and bland, so I colorized it to make it more interesting. And here, this is the way the laser actually looked. This is a laser here. This is an experimental laser. That we'll get to that, but I just want to make it clear here that this is what they put out. They did this before getting confirmation that, because they had shut it down before, and when it hit the water and they found out it was a balloon, so this must have been in between that, before they found out it was a balloon. You see? Now, my point here in doing this cartoon is to say this, that if you could shoot down balloons thinking they're drones, right? Well, and commercial aircraft fly over that same those same waters or wherever it was over El Paso, Texas. They fly over those same waters, commercial. So it'd be a lot easier because the drones resemble planes more than the drones resemble balloons. Because a drone is configured in like a miniature plane flying remotely, and it looks more like an airplane than a balloon does. So you could easily think if it was flying above there, boom, boom, and you get a laser coming at you, somebody looking out the window seeing a laser, boom, and there goes the plane. Because I'm repeating myself a little bit, but this is the whole thrust of my cartoon here, why I did this cartoon, to make the point that we joke about this, and yet it's a very serious thing. Because I'll say it again, if you could mistake balloons for drones, you could very easily mistake a commercial aircraft for a drone, because the resemblance is much more clearer than a party balloon. And there you have it here. It wouldn't have been funny if, God forbid, instead of a balloon, it was a commercial aircraft that shut down. That wouldn't have been this cartoon would never have happened then. But we can make a little bit of a joke out of it now that nobody was injured, just the balloons. And nobody's going to cry any tears over party balloons, So there it is. So this is what the CTO, the Chief Technological Officer at the Department of War. Okay, Pete, there it is, Department of War, with the warrior ethos. So now you say, okay, well, Pete had nothing to do with this. The guy got a little bit too enthusiastic, thinking we got him, we got to show the American people this, and there it was coming out, and this was all fabricated up. That with the eagle here, the American eagle here, the bald eagle, and everything, the American flag here, and then posted on X. They posted this on X. He posted it on X. So here I have Pete Hegseth giving thumbs up to the fact that he's saying here, that's my chief technology officer. Don't blame me. Don't blame me, because he don't want the blame for it. But the thing about, I'm going to say one other thing here, is that Pete Hegseth has drummed in to this Department of War now that it's not called, technologically it's still Department of Defense, but by de facto it's the Department of War, because he's developed this fighting attitude of those who are still there, have to have this fighting attitude, this warrior attitude, warrior ethos, I think he called it. So if you didn't have that, you were gone. If you had done things that showed a little bit of, that you weren't with on his team, you were gone. He didn't want any what they call woke and this and that. No woke people around here. So these guys were gung ho. So this philosophy flowed down from the top, which is Pete Hegseth, to these guys. This CTO here, this Chief Technology Officer, and he says, this is a great opportunity for us to show that we are men of war. And all I ended up doing was shooting down a one-party balloon. And then evidently they saw that when it landed or something, they saw it was a party balloon. And there Pete's left here with a party balloon. So he's, in my cartoon here, he didn't say this, but my cartoon, he's saying, that's my Chief Technology Officer. Don't blame me. Thumbs up. And there it is. Okay, and there's the bald eagle, and this is the thing that's coming through, So and another thing about using this method here of not using missiles but using lasers. The lasers are a lot cheaper. If you get all these tons of drones coming at you, and you have to fire all those missiles, that's $1 trillion, that's $1 billion. But these are much more economical to use. Okay, lasers go like that, and that's what they're working on with our Golden Dome, and that could be the future of our defense, depending upon how we can get these lasers working, with those hypersonics, and you got to get those lasers perfected where they could go after hypersonics and all that business. and then it doesn't become that expensive a proposition because you're shooting tons of missiles. At all costs, costs $1 million missile. You're shooting a lot of money, and a lot of them could be decoys too. So when you got the lasers, it's an infantile fraction of what those missiles cost. So lasers are important, and that's a good thing that they're working on lasers, but they shouldn't be leasing them out like that to people who and not coordinating with the FAA. But we're going to get into that, and then I'm going to finish on the introduction here. Okay. Given it was later identified as a party balloon near El Paso, Texas, that after drone concerns triggered a temporary FAA shutdown of El Paso airspace for hours. Given the drone was shut down by a U.S. Customs and Border Protection agency under the Department of Homeland Security. Okay, so that was a Customs and Border Protection agency who under the Department of Homeland Security. And reports indicate the Department of Defense loaned that this was an experimental anti-drone high-energy laser system to the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, to shoot down drones along the U.S.-Mexican border. So that was their strategy. Instead of using missiles and spending all that money, they were going to use these lasers. The thing about it was they didn't coordinate with the FAA, and then the FAA gets word that they're in the air and they're shooting these lasers. So boom, and all these planes have to be shut down and everything. There was no coordination. Now, it's obvious there was no coordination the way he declared an emergency, like Sean Duffy had to declare an emergency like this, So, but we'll get to Sean in a little while, okay? Hang in there, okay? To the shoot down drones along the U.S.-Mexican border, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth signed off on the transfer of the technology weeks before the incident. So Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, had given the go-ahead and signed off to give the DHS, who gave it to this the Customs and Border Protection under its realm to use, and whether it was the tracking system was perfected enough to see that it was balloons and not a drone. But again, I'm going to repeat this for the third time because it's the essence of my cartoon here. The thrust of it is that if they can mistake a balloon for a drone, and a drone looks a lot more like an airplane, and these commercial airplanes flying all over the place up there over El Paso, they could very easily, it would have been easier to mistake a commercial jet plane for a drone. And then boom, you got something there. So again, I said it for the third time, but that's the thrust of this cartoon and why I did it, to make sure that we stay on the ball here. We have enough close calls as it is without lasers going up in the air, We're having close calls all day, all the time at airports. Yeah. So anyway, so here goes this. The bottom line being, apparently, whether or not the DOD, okay, we'll call it Department of Defense here because that's how they wrote it here when I was reading it, or the DHS believed they needed FAA, Federal Aviation Administration approval. The FAA is run by, the FAA was run by Sean Duffy. You see, he runs. He's the Transportation Secretary. Excuse me. But he's under his umbrella is the FAA. Okay, he's under the FAA is under transportation. Okay, so that's again under the umbrella of the transportation, which is Sean Duffy. So okay, so he wasn't given any kind of briefing apparently, or sufficient briefing to know what was going on here. So he had to close down the whole place there, the whole airspace of El Paso. Okay, their lack, and the bottom line here is their lack. What I'm saying here, they need FAA approval to operate. But their lack of better coordination contribute. I'm saying at the best, their lack of coordination between the FAA and the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of War, the coordination there, the lack of coordination is evident that at best contributed to this incident, okay, given the commercial airlines fly over there, okay. And here it was here, and there it was that they showed here in that picture that was posted by the CTO the chief technology officer at the Department of War, okay, that they show him shooting down one of the drones, which actually was one of the balloons. Okay, there goes one of the balloons that actually got shut down. Okay, there you got it, folks. That's that. Now, the second part of this cartoon here is we've got here President Trump here in front of the White House. Okay, here he is. He's getting to leave on Marine One, waiting for his helicopter, approaching his helicopter, and there's the White House in the background here. There's the White House in the background, and President Trump is getting ready to leave on his helicopter. Okay, and here it goes. Richard Trump on February 13th, 2016, being questioned about Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy outside the White House, given Duffy's post on X, and it's another post from the Secretary of Transportation, and in May 25, and May 2025, Duffy was already Secretary of Transportation. President Trump boasted about him, highlighting Duffy's past. He was a world champion tree climber. So Sean Duffy also, in his history, had been a world champion tree climber. So again here, President Trump is being asked if he still has what his feeling about Duffy is after this, what's going on here after the post, after Duffy's post on X. He was questioned about it. Are you pleased with him? The reporter asked President Trump, and President Trump responded, saying here, this is what they were asking him about, what Duffy put up on X. Okay, so here's Duffy here. Here's Sean Duffy on his post on X. Okay, and he says here he goes. FAA and DOW, the Department of War, and the Federal Aviation acted swiftly to address a cartel drone incursion. Okay? So he's saying they acted swiftly to a cartel drone. So he's saying here a cartel drone incursion. This is probably right after it happened, before he was alerted to what was going, or after it happened. He still thought it was drones and he hadn't been notified, which goes to either show that he was just playing like a puppet to President Trump, or he wasn't coordinated with what the people of with the Defense Department, the War, okay, Department of War. There you got it. All right, was doing here. So there's definitely evidence of a lack of coordination here. And when he says that the FAA and DOW acted swiftly to address a cartel drone incursion, and number two, the threat has been neutralized and there is no danger to commercial travel in the region. So there had been a danger thing to commercial travel, does happen in the region. And they shut down balloons, thinking they were drones. Okay? I'm harping on that because that's the significance of this cartoon, is not to downgrade our people, but to show how important it is to have things coordinated and done properly when you're dealing with stuff like this. The restrictions have been lifted. Okay, he goes, the restrictions have been lifted and normal flights are resuming. And that was at 9:37 a.m. February 11th. Okay? And on February 13th, 2 days later, after he put this up, President Trump was questioned here on February 13th, and President Trump still is backing him for that. You got to call it an erroneous, at best, an erroneous post on X, an erroneous post on X. He didn't have the full facts, or he was playing with the team. I don't know which one it is, okay? But again, that's not the thrust here, is seeing that this don't happen again. Okay, so now we got President Trump here in front of the White House, and he's going to respond to that reporter here. And here he goes. Here goes President Trump, thumbs up. Respond. I don't think he did. I didn't see him do thumbs up in the video, but I gave him thumbs up because he's with Sean Duffy all the way, and this is my rendition, my own creation of how he would have responded because he had praised him for being a champion tree climber in the past. Okay, Sean Duffy. So here goes President Trump, and he's saying this: Sean is doing a great job. He did say that. Sean is doing a great job. He got those planes flying again in no time over El Paso. That is because he was the world champion for 5 years, climbing trees and down, up and down. And that's why he can get planes safely into and out of the air very fast. So he's commenting on Sean Duffy getting the planes down and up very fast, and leaving out the fact that he wasn't aware that there were balloons at the time of this, or he was just playing along with the team. Whatever it is, it is. So you decide on that one. But here it is. That was President Trump here in front of the White House responding to a reporter's question. And there it goes. Thumbs up for Sean Duffy. Okay, he got those planes up. The tree climber did it. All right, folks, thank you for watching my video. God bless you. Hang in there, and I'll see you next time. Bye.